YouTubers and space detectives. Today got a really interesting one for you. This was not found by me, this was found by a researcher called Lani Gabor, and I'll show you some links to his stuff in a second. In fact, I'll do that right away. I'll show you his original post. Here's Lani Gabor's post on Martian Genesis. This was only yesterday, and we have this image taken by the Curiosity rover, taken by I think it's the left nav cam. NLB it says there in the image address. NLB, that means nav cam left B. Okay, so the images are in black and white, but they're not terrible quality. They're not amazing, but they're not terrible either. Unlike some of the color ones we get, they're not downgraded as much, I don't think. And there's not much distortion in the image, so they're not too bad actually. There we have it. I mean, what can I say? This is what seems to be a fossilized stroke mummified, another mummified Martian. Now, whether this is a child or a fully grown person, I couldn't tell you. But it's not very big. And how do I know that? Well, I'll show you in a second, but basically you've got the rover wheel in the image as well, just below. And we know what size that is, so we can use that to measure the thing we have here, okay? So what I did, as soon as I saw it, I thought, wow, what a find. Absolutely brilliant find. I think I've commented below here saying that it's a really cool find. Great find, good scale reference in the image from the wheel, also a bonus. And there's lots of other comments here. Some people seem to really like it. And I have published some of Lani's work before, and I'm going to show you one or two other things that he's found over both recently and in the past, which I've got in my folder. And if I find any more of his stuff that I've got a feeling there's one or two other images that he's contributed in the past. If I can dig them up, I'll put them in at the end as well. So there'll be a few of his finds in like a little sort of slideshow at the end. Okay, so here's another find that he found, I think just today, 30 minutes ago. This is great. This is so good. A dog. Now, as I have said before, on a number of occasions, in fact, if you go back through my list of videos here on my channel and go back to one of these here, I think it was this one, animal sculpture found on Mars. Now, I go into some detail here about the Martian soil and how it's very sticky, okay, and how under a bit of pressure it will stick together like clay and then set hard like concrete, okay. Without a great deal of pressure, this is what it does. Now, what that means is that if you were a dog or a person or some other kind of creature and you died on the surface of this, what was a lake bed, and the soil kind of, you've got sort of covered in clay and soil and sand. If there was water above you, or anything heavy above you, like say a big sand dune, for instance, say there was a huge sand dune, and you were kind of covered up over a number of years in this sand, and it built up in a big sort of layer, it would squash down onto you, and it would flatten you out, for one thing, slightly, but you would form a layer of this kind of sulphurous kind of clay around your face or around your body, and it would encrust you, almost like the Pompeii victims in Italy, at Pompeii, okay, where they were encrusted in plaster, okay. So that's kind of what's happening here. So this is a form of mummification, but it's not simple mummification where something's just dried out. The soil has got such a high sulphur content, which it acts like a very, very good preservative. Not only that, I mean, if you look at many of the foods you eat, you look on the food labels, a lot of foods contain sulphur dioxide. And it's used as a preservative. Sulphur is used as a preservative in sausage meat and things like that, and in bacon and pork products and meat products. all sorts of things. It's even used in drinks. Sulphur dioxide is used as a preservative in things like cider and soft drinks even. Okay, it makes some people ill if there's too much of it in there. But there we are. It's a very good preservative, but it also acts like a glue in this sand. So this may well be an actual dog, and this is just the head exposed. The body's possibly below. It also says here that I think this looks a bit like a lizard here. It does, but I'm not sure it is. It looks a bit like an iguana or something, but that may just be a coincidence. Don't know. I've got a clip of that. I'll show you that in a minute. But the main one we're looking at today is this one, which is a great find. And I've got my clip I've done of it here, which I posted literally hours after he showed that one. I was so impressed with the find that I immediately downloaded the image and I took a clip and done one of my Mars memes here, where I've done a very, very basic cutout here. As you can see, enlarged this part of the image and then added a color filter, a bit of contrast and a bit of brightness and a bit of sharpness. That's all, not a lot. As you can see, there's very little difference between the two in detail. But what I didn't notice immediately, apart from the fact that there's got a very long thin arm with what looks like he or it or her is holding something here. Not really sure about that. I'll show you a bit closer in a minute. But one of the legs does seem to be either broken or this is a foot and the other foot is broken off. I don't know. A bit hard to tell what's going on there. The legs are very short, baby sort of length. This is only about 6 or 7 inches long from head to toe here, okay? Not very big at all, okay? And we got eye detail, we got nose detail, got a little chin, we got breast detail, we got what looks like a sash or chain coming around here from the shoulder, around here and under where the arm was here. Now, whether there is an arm still attached here, I can't really tell. I brightened it right up, but because it's such heavy shadow there, you can't really see anything in there. There is something there. I'll do that again for you in a second, actually. But what's very tantalising about this, not only do we have a head and arms, or one arm and part of a shoulder there, and 2 legs, even though one of them seems to be malformed or broken, we have a belt, which is quite shiny. If you look at it, let your eyes adjust. In fact, it almost shows up better in the smaller image. Look just along here, and you've got like a shiny belt with a part like a buckle here, perhaps, okay? And we have what looks like a chain, a small chain going around the chest area, up over the shoulder here, okay? It goes right up here, and then down. You can see links there, just about make out some. In fact, in the raw image, you can see that just there. Look, if you look really carefully, you can see these little links joined together. This is fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and is I would say probably the best find of the year so far. Indeed, just those details to me really make this something special, because normally we don't get anything like this, as in clothing or anything like that. We very rarely see anything that resembles clothing that we can examine, and the accoutrements like jewellery are very rare. Although I have found things that look like earrings on some of the mummies, and I have found things like bracelets as well, and I think 1 or 2 other people have as well. But to actually have one wearing what looks like a chain going around here, around the chest and under the arm, like a sash. I don't think it is a sash, but it's worn like a sash. Now this may be attached to something like a backpack or a weapon or something like this could be a scabbard here. This seems to be attached to it, and in fact I've only just thought of that. I have found what look like scabbards and swords in other parts of this crater, not very far from here, lying on the ground, quite small. So it is possible. It is possible. I'm not going to rule it out. Absolutely fascinating. So we have what looks like a belt here. If you look carefully, there's parts to it just there, with a main part in the middle, like a buckle, like a rectangular bit that's just there. Although that could actually be a jockstrap. Sounds crazy, I know, but you know, don't rule it out. We don't know enough about these little people yet to rule anything out. We have to take everything as it comes and look at it in a non-hysterical way, calmly and collectively, and try and compare it to all the other things that have been found in the area, and carefully deduct from that what is going on, okay? What type of clothing they're wearing, how big they are, how old they possibly live to, that kind of thing. Eventually we will have enough of these to make a very good picture of what some of the people, the smaller types of people on Mars, were actually wearing and doing and living like. As well as their art and possibly writing, we should eventually get to know them quite intimately. Just by having details like this, it can tell you a hell of a lot about a type of a person, whether they're a warrior or some kind of servant or some kind of nobleman or whatever. It's very tantalizing. But this could be construed as a scabbard here. And this could be a scabbard. Some scabbards were worn over the shoulder. They weren't always worn around the waist with a belt around the waist. Some were worn higher up. If they were carrying a dirk or dagger, perhaps. You know, so it is possible that that is a scabbard there. I couldn't really say, there's not really enough detail there, but the chain is very tantalizing. You can see that in the raw image, just there. Let me show you the folder actually, because we want to see it a bit closer up. It doesn't get any clearer when you get too close, but let me show you these clips I've got anyway. I'll show you the meme I did first. Here we are. It just shows it a bit closer. Okay, spotted by Lanny Gabor, 3rd of March, only yesterday. There's the raw image, you can see the chain there, okay? Once you let your eyes adjust, you can see the rings in the link chain and what looks like something attached to it there as it comes down. So in a way, it's slightly better from that distance. You can see it a bit better. Let's go back a bit like that, and you can see the contrast better when you stand back a bit or sit back a bit. There's some eye detail, but not a great deal. Nose detail, a bit distorted around the face here. That's consistent with many of the other ones I've found. Some of them almost look like they have mutations, perhaps due to the radiation on Mars. So that is a possibility. Some of them that seem to have facial mutations, but of course, if we're not that familiar with their facial features, because we only have a few really clear specimens, then we don't know what is normal to them. So judgment needs to be reserved on these matters, because we don't know if these are mutations or just natural. Okay, so there we are. What an absolutely brilliant find. Chain there, possible belt there. We got leg detail. This angle here looks like it's kind of broken, perhaps, or the leg could be twisted round. This could be the knee here, and the leg could be twisted round the other way, and this one could be broken off. So the legs may have been longer than this and may have broken off. I have found other specimens, animal specimens, where the feet and hands are broken off and stuff. And incidentally, there are others in the area, not very far from here, of a similar scale. Let me show you the raw image. Here, this is the original image it came from. Links will be below to all these things. Lanny's pictures on Facebook and the original NASA image like this will be in the description. Here it is. So it's not very big. There it is, just there. You can just about make it out. Here's the rover wheel. Now that's 20 inches, but we're not seeing the entire wheel. So we're only seeing just over half the wheel there, about 2/3 of it there, okay? So so that would be what, about 15 or so inches from there to there. Maybe a bit less, yeah. And there it is up there. So this isn't very big. I would say it's a bit of a distance away, but not very far. I would say only a few feet away. really. One, two, three, about 3 feet away. So this is about 5 or 6 inches, maybe 7, perhaps, and it's very similar in scale. Let's zoom into it. There it is. It's there. Okay. You can see that chain. Look at the chain. It's there. It helps if you enlarge it. You can see it a bit more clearly. But if you enlarge the image and stuff it for the pixels. But there we are. We got scale because we got the wheel in shot here. So that's great in itself. There's lots of other possible parts, possible body parts and other odd things lying around, but there's not a great deal of detail in these images. But luckily this is just on the sort of size where you can see enough to find out what you're looking at. It's any smaller than this and they're almost impossible to say either way. Here's that dog. I just did a meme of that, just to show that he's not imagining things here, which I think is great. Similar to some I've found animals. Now this may be carved, but this does look like hair here. Okay, so this actually may be an actual dog. And it, like I said, it's become mummified, dried out, preserved in the sulphurous soil, and then hardened and over time and dried out and turned to, or practically turned to stone. You know, I expect if you kicked it, it would probably disintegrate into dust, possibly. But the conditions on Mars are very different, and the soil is very different. There's hardly any oxygen, so there's hardly any moisture. There's a high sulfur content in the soil. The soil sticks to things. It's got a glue. The sulfur acts like a glue, especially under pressure, and it forms into a concrete. So this is concretion we're looking at here. Okay, very interesting. And the hair, the morphology is there. And if you look really carefully, you can see some little teeth in there. Okay, so pretty vague because they're in shadow. So look at the raw. Even in the raw image, you can just about make them out. Okay, so it's there, and it's very similar to some of the things I found in the area, and the same sort of scale. I don't know how big this is exactly. This is probably only a few inches across. Do I have the raw image? Yes, I do. There's the raw image. Yeah, I mean, this is similar size to that lion carving I found. Now, so this could be a carving, but it also could be a mummy. Either, take your pick. But the hair detail says to me that it may be an actual real mummified head. Okay, and we got this kind of squarish rock here with some interesting things on it. So this is from a different sol. This is from, that was from sol 1283. So I've got links to all these things, and I'll put them in the description, as I said earlier. Here's another one of Lanya's finds, which I published in one of my videos a while ago, last year, which is also a great find. This is from a colour image from sol 844. So that's going back even further. And this is on the side of a sort of mound, and a lot of these are burial mounds, as I've said before. And the soil's eroded away over years, exposing many of these things. But what was cool about this find was the teeth, the bright white teeth, which I thought was really interesting, and lip detail and nose detail, which is quite clear because the way the light's kind of hitting it there. There's not a great deal of detail in this part of the image because it's too dark. But if you look at the raw image, you can see that there, it's there. Even in these crappy colour images, you can still see enough detail. This is also quite small. This is only a few inches in size across. As most of these things are, they are much smaller than the human skulls and heads. They're about a third of the size. But there are some very, very large ones as well, which have a very different look and morphology to them, and are a different species or type of person, and may have even been a sort of large primate sort of creature rather than the humanoid, some of them. But that, you know, I've done lots of videos on this, so if you want to go and find out more about the other types of people, to go through my channel. Here's my clip. I'll have a link to that. You can download that as well if you want to download it and have a proper look at it. You can come to Mars Magazine. There's links also to that in the description below. Clips coming up now.